Let's take this as an opportunity to talk about how neither your government nor your company give a shit about you. Unless you've been living in a hermitage and only downloaded the app 30 minutes ago, then you already know that the United States government is trying to ban TikTok. Oh, and also any other app that they don't like us having access to. Yesterday, the TikTok CEO sat through a congressional hearing where he was largely berated by politicians who wanted to get in their soundbite and apparently make it very clear that they do not understand how technology works. Up until this point, the discussion around banning TikTok is largely focused on the potential security risks, and the app has already been banned on government-issued devices, which frankly I think does make a lot of sense. But yesterday we heard a lot of additional concerns that these politicians had, and frankly concerns that we even in the TikTok community discuss all the time, like the suppression of Black, Indigenous, and people of color content, the spread of misinformation, etc. But ironically, it largely read like a laundry list of things that the US government has not done shit about for literal decades, and that companies like the Meta, Facebook, Instagram conglomerate have been doing for years and are continuing to do to this very day. But let's just take one example, the concern around violence and the impact of this dangerous violence on the community of using this dangerous app. For example, the promotion of things like gun violence and the dangers of these challenges. Do you know about the challenges like the milk crate challenge? They even pointed out that their concerns about TikTok have done something that hasn't been done since Putin. They compared the TikTok CEO to Putin. But he has done something that hasn't been able to be done in years, which is unite Democrats and Republicans in a shared concern. Meanwhile, over 900 children have been killed due to gun violence in 2023 alone, and we are not even a quarter of the way through the year. That's not the issue that we are united on, Republicans and Democrats. Gun violence is not the issue that we want to focus on. It is banning this dangerous app that is promoting these dangerous behaviors like the milk crate challenge. Do you want to know how many people were killed by the milk crate challenge? 2 to 3, depending on which news source you believe, and they were shot! Republicans and Democrats are united on their hatred of this app because it helps spread the word of the people and create communities from folks who never otherwise would have found each other. It allows us to look into other countries and see that things that have been demonized, like universal health care and guaranteed maternity leave, are not the government crashing, country ruining things that we have been led to believe they are. And we're starting to question why we can't have those things ourselves. They are scared shitless that we are actually going to demand better of them and be able to organize in ways where we could enact change. They can't have that because they care more about keeping the government conglomerate, this big faceless thing, and their individual power. They care more about that than they do the will and word of the people. So how does this all tie back to how companies don't give a shit about us either? Well, just like how the government is this faceless thing that kind of is known to operate at this meta level as separate from the individual players, where individual players do have an impact and do have some sway to do good, but the government conglomerate can make it really hard and break even the best intentioned people. A company is a big faceless thing that people sometimes forget doesn't care about them in the way that maybe some individual managers and leaders do. People care, companies don't. Well, just like the government, a company is kind of this big faceless thing that can be thought of as separate from the individual people who are there. And you can have well-meaning people in leadership, just like you can have well-meaning people in government, but the needs and desires of the company to grow as big as quickly as humanly possible while expending as few resources as possible, putting pressure on those individual people to behave in ways that feed that goal and not necessarily are great for individual humans. Just like the government as a whole wanting to move forward as a machine puts pressure on even well-intentioned politicians, right? People care, companies don't. The latest round of tech layoffs are a great example of how little companies give a shit about you as people. In the latest round of layoffs, we are seeing people being laid off during parental leave. We are seeing people being laid off while they are in the literal delivery room. We are seeing people where both folks work at the same company and both of them are being laid off at once. And we are also seeing people who have been working there for 1, 2 more decades also being laid off, even though they've been performing perfectly fine. And even more provocative in this round of layoffs, we are seeing so many high performers let go too. People who are working 2 and 3 jobs for the pay of one. People who are staying up until the wee hours of the morning, responding all through their vacations if they take them at all, being online on the weekends because they are so afraid that they could get fired. Those people got fired too. Now, I'm not saying that there is never a valid reason to do mass layoffs, that someone's life circumstances should have complete control over whether or not someone is fired or laid off or not, and I'm certainly not saying that being a high performer doesn't give you more of an advantage over a low performer when it comes to who is going to be cut. But what I am saying is that if it becomes more valuable to the company to fire you or you become inconvenient, there is no amount of energy or passion or effort or productivity that you could have given that company to guarantee that they will not get rid of you if it is more beneficial to them to do so. You cannot work your way into 100% guaranteed job security. Even if they tell you that they have no idea what they would do without you, I guarantee you they'd figure it out. In the past few years, we have seen more of a push from workers to set work boundaries. The quiet quitting revolution was not people slacking off on the job. It was just saying, I'm only going to do my job. And then we started seeing the mass resignation. If you're not going to treat me well, then I'm going to go somewhere else. I very much firmly believe that the high performers who were laid off were sacrificial lambs to send a very clear message to employees. Nobody is safe. If you feel unsafe, you will work yourself into the ground, and the company doesn't care that it is actually more beneficial to them to have their employees have good work-life balance so that their best performing employees don't burn out and leave. The company doesn't care. It wants to grow as quickly as possible, and it doesn't care who it steps on to do that. Scared workers work harder to prove themselves and try and keep their jobs. If you remember that those high performers were laid off, the emotional memory that you're going to retain is not, even the best performers were laid off, and so maybe this isn't a good path to job security. The emotional memory is, no one is safe, and so I better work 3 times as hard to make sure next time I will at least be safe. I don't know how much longer TikTok will get to stay around, and I'm going to keep creating content on this app for as long as I can. But if you like my content and you are a burnt out overachiever who still wants to do amazing work, but is tired of giving more than you are getting back from your companies, go over to the link in my bio, join my newsletter, or download my freebie to be automatically added to it so that even if social media comes down, even if TikTok comes down, I don't have to go over to Meta as my only source, and I give actionable tips in every single newsletter that I send out. And if you don't think the TikTok ban is not primarily about controlling the narrative, or you think my company would never lay me off because I am so valuable, I'm gonna need you to head over to my Amazon storefront and pick up a headlamp because it must be really dark with your head that far up your